At Giza, three great pyramids rise from the desert like a frozen pattern, and for some observers, that pattern was never random. They looked up at Orion's belt and saw a sky map pressed into stone. So what exactly were the builders trying to say? This mystery lives between Egypt's ancient monuments and one of the oldest human habits, turning to the stars for meaning. Long before the theory had a name, the pyramids already seemed to belong to both earth and sky. The Great Pyramid, the Pyramid of Khafre, and the smaller Pyramid of Menkaure have stood for millennia, and their arrangement has invited comparison with the three stars of Orion's belt. The resemblance is not exact, but it is uncanny enough to keep returning. For believers in the Orion Correlation Theory, the question is not whether the match is perfect, but whether it was meant to be symbolic. If ancient Egyptians saw the heavens as a divine blueprint, could Giza be a terrestrial reflection of that design? The theory gained modern attention through Robert Bauval, who argued that the pyramid layout mirrors Orion's belt as it appeared in a distant age. That idea transformed a familiar monument into a much larger puzzle about memory, astronomy, and intention. To understand why it matters, you have to step into the worldview of ancient Egypt, where the sky was not empty space. It was a realm of gods, kings, and eternal order, and the dead pharaoh was expected to join them. Orion was linked with Osiris, the god of death and rebirth, while the north sky carried its own sacred importance. In that setting, a pyramid complex could have been more than architecture. It could have been theology in stone. The story begins with a simple but powerful observation. The three main pyramids are not arranged in a straight line. Their offset spacing resembles the slight bend of Orion's belt, the feature that first caught Bauval's eye. From there, the theory expands into a more ambitious claim. The Nile becomes a kind of Milky Way, the pyramids become stars, and the whole Giza plateau begins to look like a deliberate celestial diagram. What makes the idea hard to dismiss outright is the precision of the site itself. Giza is not a loose cluster of ruins. It is a carefully planned landscape, laid out with astonishing geometric discipline. The Great Pyramid especially seems to challenge easy explanation. Its scale, orientation, and internal complexity suggest a level of organization that still feels extraordinary when seen against the tools and labor available in antiquity. Supporters of the theory point to the way ancient builders appear to have encoded sky knowledge into monuments, tombs, and texts. In that reading, Giza is not an isolated wonder, but part of a wider celestial language. One compelling detail is timing. The alignment argument depends on the sky as it looked thousands of years ago, when Orion's belt occupied a slightly different position because of precession. That historical shift is central to the theory's force. Another detail is the symbolic fit between Orion and Osiris. If the constellation represented a divine ruler in the afterlife, then mirroring it at Giza could have been a way of fixing royal destiny into the landscape. A third detail is the broader pattern of monumental alignment across Egypt. Temples and pyramids often face cardinal directions or track solar events, which makes the sky connection feel less like invention and more like tradition. Then there is the question of scale. To move millions of stone blocks, organize labor, and preserve orientation with such confidence, the builders needed more than muscle. They needed a shared system of knowledge and purpose. That is where the strongest believer case becomes vivid. The pyramids do not merely point at the sky, they seem to participate in it, as if the ground itself were arranged to echo an older celestial order. Yet the debate is not settled by wonder alone. Egyptologists note that the pyramid layout can be explained through practical site constraints, royal succession, and the evolving design choices of different reigns. Skeptics also question how exact the comparison really is. Orion's belt is a loose pattern of three stars, and the pyramid's positions can be read in more than one way, depending on which reference points are chosen. That criticism matters, because pattern recognition is powerful. Human minds are built to find order, and once a constellation has been named, it is easy to see its shape in almost anything. Even so, the theory survives because it asks a deeper question than geometry. Why did the builders care so intensely about the sky, and why did they choose this particular arrangement at this particular place? The most difficult detail may be the combination of symbolism and engineering. Giza feels both practical and ceremonial, as if the technical achievement and the spiritual message were inseparable from the beginning. That blend leaves room for extraordinary interpretation without requiring it. A monument can be built for kings, for gods, and for the stars at the same time, and ancient Egypt was comfortable with layered meanings. Still, the Orion Correlation Theory endures because it captures a feeling many people have when standing at Giza, that the site is not just old, but deliberately tuned to something beyond the horizon. The question is whether that something was symbolic, scientific, or both. There are also unresolved historical puzzles around how much astronomical knowledge was formalized in the Old Kingdom. We can see the results in stone, but the exact chain of ideas behind them is still partly hidden. That uncertainty keeps the debate alive. If the builders were simply practical, the sky resemblance may be coincidence. If they were encoding sacred cosmology, then Giza becomes a message we have only partly learned to read. Either way, the monuments remain astonishing. Their placement, proportions, and endurance suggest a civilization that understood landscape as something to be shaped with intention, not merely occupied. And that is why the Orion question keeps returning. It sits at the edge of archaeology and imagination, where careful measurement meets a feeling that the ancients may have known more than we can easily recover. The conventional reading still has weight. Royal tombs, dynastic power, religious symbolism, and impressive but human engineering. Yet none of those explanations fully erase the sense that the layout carries an additional layer of meaning. Perhaps that is the enduring appeal. The theory does not ask us to reject history. It asks whether history preserved a sky memory in a form we are only now learning to notice. Standing in the desert, the pyramids seem less like isolated tombs than coordinates in a larger design. Whether that design was devotional, astronomical, or something else entirely, it still feels unfinished. And maybe that is the real mystery at the heart of the Orion Correlation Theory. Not just whether the stars were copied, but why the connection feels so alive after all these centuries. The stones are still speaking, if we are listening in the right language.